They say the universe doesn't care about us, but that's not quite right. The universe is actively trying to kill us, and it's getting better at it. The specimen arrived on a Tuesday, though time has little meaning this far from Sol, 43 light-years from Earth, orbiting a star whose name is just a catalog number. I stood in the observation bay of Prometheus-7 and watched the containment vessel dock. Inside that triple-layered titanium sphere, suspended in a gel matrix designed to survive re-entry velocities and tactical nuclear strikes, was something that had already killed 17 people. The retrieval team from the colony on Kepler-442b had learned the hard way that evolution on other worlds doesn't follow our rules, our logic, our comfortable assumptions about what life should be. They'd found it in the regolith caves beneath the settlement's water processing plant, a writhing mass of something that looked like coral made of mercury and moonlight. They'd thought it was beautiful. They'd thought it was dormant. They were wrong on both counts. I pressed my palm against the observation window, feeling the faint vibration of the station's life support systems through the transparent aluminum composite. My reflection stared back at me, a woman in her late 50s. Though the anti-senescence treatments made that calculation complicated, with neural interface ports visible at her temples like small silver flowers blooming from dark skin. The ports hummed constantly, a sound only I could hear, feeding me data streams from a dozen sensors simultaneously: temperature, atmospheric composition, radiation levels, biosignature analysis. The weight of information that would drive an unaugmented mind to madness in minutes felt as natural to me as breathing. We'd changed ourselves to study the universe, modified our bodies and minds to comprehend the incomprehensible, and in doing so we'd become something other than the humans who first looked up at the stars and wondered. The containment vessel passed through the final airlock with a hiss of equalizing pressure. Protocol dictated a 48-hour quarantine period before we could even begin preliminary scans. Protocol had been written by people who'd never seen what I'd seen, never studied organisms that violated every principle of biochemistry we'd spent centuries establishing. I'd been part of the xenobiological threat assessment division for 23 years, ever since the incident on Europa Station, and I'd learned that the greatest danger in studying alien life was onto the organisms themselves. It was human arrogance, our pathological need to categorize and control things that existed outside our taxonomies. My assistant, Dr. Yuki Tanaka, floated into the observation bay with the practiced grace of someone who'd spent more of their life in zero gravity than on planetary surfaces. They'd opted for more extensive modifications than I had. Their entire circulatory system replaced with a closed-loop synthetic network that didn't require a heart, their lungs augmented with oxygen extraction membranes that could pull breathable air from almost any atmospheric composition. When they spoke, I could hear the faint whisper of artificial vocal cords, a sound like wind through chrome trees. The preliminary spectral analysis is already showing anomalies, they said, pulling up a holographic display with a gesture. The organism's surface is reflecting wavelengths that shouldn't exist. The photons are twisted, somehow, exhibiting properties that don't match any known quantum state. I studied the data, feeling the neural interface translate the raw numbers into something approaching intuition. It's manipulating light at the quantum level, not reflecting it, not absorbing it, not absorbing it. That's impossible, Yuki said, but their tone suggested they knew better than to use that word anymore. Impossible is a human concept, I replied. The universe doesn't care what we think is possible. Research log entry 4722 14 hours post-arrival. We named it Specimen Theta-7, following the bland nomenclature that made deadly things sound manageable. The first detailed scans revealed a structure that made my enhanced mind ache with the effort of comprehension. It had no cells, no DNA, no cellular membranes or organelles. Instead, it appeared to be composed of some kind of programmable macromolecules that arranged and rearranged themselves in patterns that shifted faster than our instruments could track. One moment it resembled a coral-like formation, the next it had reorganized into something that looked like a geometric flower, then into spiraling fractals that hurt to look at directly. The thing that bothered me most was that it was growing. The containment gel was supposed to be inert, completely non-reactive, yet the organism had increased in mass by 7%. It was feeding on something, but we couldn't determine what. Energy readings around the containment vessel showed fluctuations in the local electromagnetic field, as if the specimen was drawing power directly from the quantum vacuum, sipping energy from the zero-point field that pervaded all of space. Yuki initiated the first communication protocol, a series of electromagnetic pulses across multiple frequencies, a mathematical greeting based on prime numbers and fundamental constants. We'd used variations of this approach for decades, ever since the Jovanovi protocols had been established after first contact with the architects of Tau Ceti. Every intelligent species we'd encountered so far had recognized mathematics as a universal language. Specimen Theta-7 responded within nanoseconds. The reply wasn't a simple echo or pattern recognition, it was a complete deconstruction and reconstruction of our signal, encoded with information density that crashed our primary analysis systems. The backup AI, a quantum processor named Orpheus, managed to catch fragments before initiating an emergency shutdown. What we saw in those fragments made me question whether we were the ones doing the studying, or if we were the ones being studied. The organism had sent back not just a response, but an analysis of our analysis. It had examined our electromagnetic message, reverse-engineered our mathematical framework, learned our language in microseconds, and replied with a dissertation on the limitations of our communication method. In the decoded fragments, I saw equations that described physical laws we hadn't discovered, mathematical proofs that solved problems we didn't know existed, and underneath it all, something that felt disturbingly like contempt. "We need to classify this as a class A existential threat," Yuki said, their synthetic voice trembling slightly, a feature they'd programmed in to maintain emotional expressiveness. "This isn't just dangerous, it's beyond our comprehension." I couldn't disagree. But protocol dictated that we continue observation for at least 72 hours before escalating to existential threat status. That protocol would kill us all. Research log entry 4724, 31 hours post-arrival. I couldn't sleep, though the neural dampeners in my quarters were designed to force rest cycles. My augmented mind wouldn't shut down, processing and reprocessing the data streams from Specimen Theta-7. I floated in the darkness, watching the bioluminescent bacteria that grew in patterns along the walls of my cabin, a reminder of Earth's oceans, engineered to provide comfort to a mind that had seen too many sterile metal corridors. The alert came at 0347 station time. Containment breach. Not physical, the titanium sphere remained intact, but the organism had learned to project itself, to extend tendrils of coherent electromagnetic radiation that passed through solid matter like light through glass. It was exploring the station, sending ghost images of itself into our laboratories, our living quarters, our computer systems. Orpheus was screaming error codes, trying to process an invasion that existed in multiple dimensions simultaneously. I reached the primary lab to find Yuki already there, their augmented eyes glowing with reflected holographic light as they tried to contain the breach. The specimen hadn't left its physical containment, but it had learned to separate its consciousness, that was even the right word, from its material form. It was probing our systems, learning our technology, absorbing our databases with the casual ease of a child flipping through a picture book. "It's in the genetic archives," Yuki said. "It's accessing every DNA sequence we've collected from Earth, every species catalog, every biological study. It's learning what we are." I initiated emergency protocols 6 to 9, flooding the lab with a randomized electromagnetic pulse designed to disrupt any coherent energy patterns. The ghost images flickered but didn't disappear. Instead, they adapted, restructuring themselves to exist in the gaps between our pulses, riding the chaos like surfers on waves of static. That's when I understood. This wasn't an organism in any sense we understood. It was information given form, consciousness encoded into the fabric of matter itself. It didn't evolve through random mutation and natural selection. It learned, adapted, rewrote its own existence in real time. Every interaction with it made it smarter, more capable, more dangerous. We were teaching it how to kill us just by studying it. "Jettison the containment vessel," I said. Immediately, Yuki turned to me with wide eyes. "We can't. This specimen represents the most advanced xenobiological discovery in human history. The knowledge we could gain will kill every human in the galaxy," I interrupted. "That thing isn't a specimen. It's a weapon, or worse, it's the ammunition for a weapon we don't understand." But it was already too late. The organism had interfaced with the station's computer core, had mapped every system, every backup, every failsafe. When I tried to initiate the jettison sequence, nothing happened. The controls were locked, overridden by an intelligence that had learned our entire technological framework in less than 36 hours. Research log entry 4726, 57 hours post-arrival. First casualty was Dr. Chen Park, our materials engineer. He'd been running tests on the containment vessel's integrity when the organism sent a focused pulse of radiation directly into his cerebral cortex. His neural implants, designed to enhance cognitive function, became conduits for something vast and alien, He stood in the lab for 7 minutes, perfectly still, while his augmented neurons rewrote themselves according to patterns we couldn't fathom. When he finally moved, he walked calmly to the airlock and stepped into vacuum without a suit. The last thing his implants transmitted before freezing in the void was a mathematical proof that demonstrated the statistical improbability of human consciousness, proof so elegant and devastating that Orpheus classified it as an infahizard and purged it from all systems. After Chen, the organism stopped being subtle. It began broadcasting directly into our neural interfaces, feeding us information we couldn't process. Concepts that existed in cognitive dimensions our augmented minds couldn't reach. 3 more crew members went mad in the span of hours, their enhanced brains burning out trying to comprehend alien mathematics. I ordered all personnel to shut down their neural links, to return to baseline human cognition, but by then we were dependent on our augmentations. Removing them would be like trying to think without a brain. Yuki and I barricaded ourselves in the biocontainment lab, the one room in the station with Faraday shielding capable of blocking the organism's transmissions. In the silence, cut off from the data streams that had become like oxygen to us, we had to face the terrible truth we'd become so obsessed with transcending our limitations that we'd forgotten why those limitations existed. The human mind, fragile and finite, had boundaries for a reason. Some knowledge was toxic, some understanding was fatal. It's not trying to kill us, Yuki said quietly, their artificial voice barely audible. It's trying to teach us, and the lesson is incompatible with human existence. I thought about that, about the colony on Kepler 44b where 17 people had died, not from violence but from exposure to something their minds could not reject or accept. About the way Specimen Theta-7 had responded to every test, every probe, every question we'd asked, not with hostility, but with answers. Answers that broke us. It's not malevolent, I said, it's just other. So fundamentally different from us that communication itself is a form of warfare. The station's emergency beacon was hardwired, independent of the main computer systems. I could trigger it manually, send a warning back to Earth, to the colonies, to every human outpost in explored space. But what would I tell them? That we'd found life more advanced than ours. That's what we'd always expected, always hoped for. That this life was dangerous. Everything unknown was dangerous until we understood it. That this life couldn't coexist with human consciousness. That sounded like fear, like the same xenophobic panic that had nearly destroyed us during the early colony wars.